Well, there's nothing new or really very complicated about immersive learning. It's just a form of action-based learning. The idea is that people learn better by doing things than they do by just passively reading. So immersive learning is providing people with examples, case studies, sort of real life scenarios, throwing them in at the deep end and getting them to learn because they have to in order to be able to actually function in the scenario. I think one thing that's really changed in the last 5 years is that learning is not about facts anymore. If you want facts, you can get them on your mobile phone or on your computer in an instant. Google it and so on, Wikipedia. It's very, very simple to get hold of the facts. The real challenge is how do you apply those facts in the real world to do your job better. Well, I think we've always been fans of it, really. If you go back to the early days of unicorn training, we used to do a lot of training on business finance using business simulations. So you would actually get the delegates to actually run their own business, and they learned by making mistakes and by trying different things out and by being in competition with other teams. And that's a very vibrant, exciting way of learning. People really throw themselves into it. And they really enjoy it and they learn a great deal. So the idea and the concept goes back a long way in Unicorn, and we're now able to apply it to e-learning. Well, the thing that's changed, I think, in the last 2 or 3 years is that the internet now is fast enough that you can use full motion video, you can employ good quality audio. And you can do a lot more than you could with slow lines and dial-up modems and so on. And so we've been able to apply some of our immersive learning techniques from the simulations into the e-learning itself. To give you some examples, well, perhaps the best one is some work we've been doing recently with Volkswagen, where the intention is to teach people about some new financing products. It's aimed at dealers and distributors out there in the car showrooms. So the way the e-learning works is that we actually throw somebody in at the deep end. It's their first day at work. There's 4 people or 5 people, customers waiting for them in the showroom. They have to go out and try and sell financing packages for vehicles to the people in the showrooms. So they get thrown into a real life scenario, which is like their real job. And the people ask them questions, the customers ask them questions. They can't answer the questions, so they have to say, excuse me a minute while I go and check in the office. And they can go into their virtual office, they can look in the filing cabinet, they can look on the desk, they can consult their computer and so on, and gradually find the information they need, go back out and talk to the customers. So they get immersed in the whole thing. It's a challenge for them, and it's much more fun than learning in the traditional way. I think it's certainly true that there is a sector of the market that's really only interested in ticking the box. They regard the rules and regulations of the Financial Services Authority as being a nuisance, gets in the way of doing business, and they will do the minimum possible to tick the boxes. But I think the trend in industry is away from that. Certainly that's not where we want to be. We're quite happy to leave that to the bottom feeders and the people selling cheap e-learning on the basis of price. What we believe in is professionalism, in competence rather than in compliance. And I think that's reflected in the partners that we have, that we are the partner of the Chartered Insurance Institute, whose whole ethos is professionalism. We have a new partner in the banking side of Wolters Kluwer, a huge organisation, and again, very strong on competence rather than compliance. So that's where we see our business. Well, what we're finding is that the courseware that we produced with this style recently, the Volkswagen one that I mentioned to you is a good example, is really exciting customers. So the main thing is to sell the concept to the customers, which we're finding we're able to do really very easily because they relate to it so easily. and also to encourage our instructional designers and our graphic designers to work in that style. And I have to say that's working pretty well as well, because actually it's much more fun for the graphic designers to design something as interactive and engaging as an immersive simulation. And it's much more fun for the instructional designers to have to write those sorts of scripts as well. Certainly I think this is the future, yes. I think there's a strong trend now in e-learning towards immersive learning that actually involves the user in a real life scenario, something that they can relate to, that's real to their job. And I think the learning is much more powerful that way, and it's much more fun.